Lisbon, Portugal, a city steeped in rich history and vibrant culture, sets the backdrop for this heart-wrenching true crime of a promising life, brutally cut short. After days of being on the national news as a missing person, the once vibrant Beatriz Lebre was tragically discovered in a river in a state of decomposition that was so bad that dental records were needed to confirm her identity. It was clear from marks on her hands that she had tried to defend herself. There were also wounds on her head. What led to such violence? Who had done this to her? And why? Accompany me as I navigate you through the series of events that culminated in this heartbreaking incident and the aftermath that ensued. Beatriz Lebre was born on June 7, 1997, from Elvas, a small town nestled near Spain's border. Growing up, she developed a deep love for music, literature, and helping others. She was a much-loved only child of Paula and Carlos Lebre. She was a gifted pianist and an avid reader, with a deep interest in psychology and human behavior. Beatriz had a dream to become a psychologist. In pursuit of this dream, she moved over 100 miles away to Lisbon and began studying psychology at the University Institute of Lisbon. She lived in her uncle's apartment in Chiles, along with her cousin. After successfully completing her 3-year bachelor's degree, she decided to further her education and enrolled in a master's degree program in social and organizational psychology. To supplement her income, she worked part-time at a Disney store. Beatriz was a sociable person who easily made friends. She was well known among her teachers, classmates, and even the customers at her workplace. Friday, May 22, Beatriz was unexpectedly absent from a group presentation in class. This came as a shock to everyone, as she was recognized for her dedication and reliability, never missing a class. What was even more unusual was that she didn't contact anyone to explain her absence. The following day, Beatriz's mother, Paula Lebre, received a call from Ruben Couto, a friend of her daughter. He expressed his concern about not being able to contact Beatriz. Immediately after ending the call with Ruben, Paula tried to reach her daughter, but her calls went unanswered. Carlos, Beatriz's father, joined Paula in Lisbon. Together, they managed to get the keys to Beatriz's apartment. Beatriz had been sharing the apartment with her cousin. However, due to the COVID pandemic, her cousin was in isolation back home, leaving her living alone. Upon reaching Beatriz's apartment, her parents were pleasantly surprised to find Ruben Couto already there, waiting for them at the entrance. They entered the apartment together and noticed that the main light was on, and there were plates on the dining table, giving the impression that Beatriz would return soon. However, they found her wallet and cell phone on the table, items she would never leave behind unless in a rush. This alarmed them. Paula speculated that Beatriz must have left in haste to leave these essential items behind. But the question remained, where could she be? Everything else in the apartment seemed clean and in order, with no signs of foul play. So initially her parents agreed that she indeed must have left of her own volition and will return soon. However, despite what she revealed on the surface, Paula's intuition was telling her something was terribly wrong. They immediately rushed to the PSP, or Portugal's Public Security Police, and filed a missing persons report. As is the case in many countries, individuals are typically required to wait 24 hours before filing such a report, unless there is evidence or a strong suspicion of a crime. Beatriz's apartment, however, showed no signs of forced entry or any signs of a struggle. May 24th, 24 hours have passed with no word or sign of Beatriz. Her anxious parents have barely slept and grew increasingly worried by the hour. Throughout this time, they were supported by her friend, Ruben Couto. Seeing the parents in such distress, Ruben opened a WhatsApp group to kick off the search for Beatriz, inviting everyone he could find who possibly knew her. From her family, friends, or acquaintances, he organized search parties and shared updates periodically with everyone. As the days went by, and there was no sign of Beatriz, her parents feared she was lost, kidnapped, or worse. Paula wondered, would a ransom note turn up? Any update at this point would be a relief. This case started to gain traction on national news with reporters and journalists talking about Beatriz everywhere. Her parents were hopeful this would raise awareness, and someone, somewhere would come forward with an update on her whereabouts. During all this, the police were conducting their own investigation. They soon announced they had their prime suspect on hand. What absolutely shocked everyone was the suspect was none other than Beatriz's friend, Ruben Couto. Paula initially thought this was nonsense. The one man who was helping more than any other, rallying people, leading search parties, and updating everyone via WhatsApp, was now being harassed by the police. How infuriating. Paula felt bad for this man. She knew that Beatriz had known Ruben since the beginning of her master's degree, and he seemed more concerned and desperate to find her than anyone else. What could possibly be the mix-up that led police to arrest Ruben? It turns out that as police were investigating Beatriz's disappearance and questioning people that knew her, they learned from her friends that Ruben was very fond of her, more like obsessed with her. He was constantly seeking her company and wanted her to spend time with him and only him. Also, from gaining access to messages on her phone, it seemed Beatriz and Ruben were more than just friends, and this was enough for them to obtain a search warrant to his apartment. There they found damning evidence to confront him with, but more on that later. Ruben Couto himself was a well-liked 24-year-old man described by many as friendly, intelligent, and at times flirtatious. Like Beatriz, he had a strong interest in literature and music, and was also studying for his master's degree in social psychology. He wrote fondly of his humanitarian volunteer work in Mozambique, and had even published articles in local newspapers. What Paula and Carlos didn't know was that the police had good reason to suspect him. When they brought Ruben Couto to the interrogation room, they spoke to him for hours, slowly showing him the proof they had gathered to gauge his reaction and obtain a confession. They showed him Beatriz's mobile phone, which revealed that they had been in contact for the past few days and that he was the last person to see her alive. They also showed him the blood traces they found in Beatriz's apartment, traces that were undetectable to the naked eye, but were visible under ultraviolet light. Beatriz's neighbor had also mentioned sightings of blood droplets at the public area in the apartment complex, but at the time she didn't think much of it and just wiped it off. Ruben denied all involvement, claiming he was just a friend of Beatriz and was extremely worried about her. The investigators were wasting their time when they could be out there, like him, leading search parties and trying to locate her. When pushed for his whereabouts that night, he said that he did indeed spend time with her, but they parted ways that night on good terms. He said he was now worried about her and had no motive or reason to harm her as he cared for her deeply. However, when investigators presented the blood they found in his father's car back in his apartment, and that the DNA matched Beatriz's, a different Ruben emerged. Now facing irrefutable proof, and surprisingly confronted in a way he couldn't imagine, he confessed. May 21st, 2020, Ruben picked up Beatriz from her apartment in Lisbon, and they drove to his parents' house, about 15 miles away. His parents were away, and they had the house to themselves. They spent the night there, and the next day, they returned to Lisbon around 1:00 p.m. That evening, Beatriz had plans to meet up with some friends, who were also her classmates. They had a group project to present the next day, and they wanted to go over the details and have some fun. Beatriz told Ruben that she could not see him that night, and that she was going back home to Elvis the following day, to visit her parents and her boyfriend. Ruben was not happy with this. He wanted to spend more time with Beatriz and did not like the idea of her being with other people, especially her boyfriend. He tried to persuade her to change her plans, but she refused. She put her foot down and told him that they were just friends, and that he had to accept that. Perhaps it was this that triggered him, a rejection for another man that he couldn't accept, because what he did next was, in one word, repulsive. Ruben said he felt rejected and angry. He decided to take matters into his own hands. He picked up an iron baton from home and drove to Beatriz's apartment. He had to pass by a toll bridge where he purposely paid in cash to avoid being traced. He knew that Beatriz was going to be alone because she had told him her cousin was back home. Ruben had also switched his phone to flight mode as an extra precaution. Upon his arrival, he exited his vehicle, concealing the baton from sight. He then rang the doorbell. Beatriz, surprised by his unanticipated visit, welcomed him inside. This account aligns with the police report, which noted no evidence of forced entry. The moment the door closed behind them, Ruben launched a vicious attack on Beatriz with his baton. He struck her multiple times. She did her best to fight back and covered her face and head with her arms. But Ruben overpowered her. He struck her hard in the head 5 times. It was so violent that Beatriz died on the spot. Once Ruben calmed down and came to grips with what he had just done, he panicked and decided he needed to find a way to cover this up and dispose of her body. He spent the next 5 hours in her apartment, meticulously cleaning up the blood and evidence. He also sent a message from Beatriz's phone to one of her friends, claiming that she was too tired to meet up with them. He waited until late at night, and using the cover of darkness, carried Beatriz's body on his back, all the way to his car. He drove to the Tajo River, the longest river on the Iberian Peninsula, and dumped her body. He then returned to his house, acting as if nothing had happened. Back to the interrogation, Ruben began to crack under the pressure and started to sob. He said he did not mean to kill her. He loved her, and that he only wanted to be with her. He said that he had initially gone to the apartment to talk to her, but she rejected him once again and told him to leave. That's when he lost control and hit her with the rod in a fit of rage. He said that he had panicked and that he had tried to get rid of the evidence and the body. He said that he regretted what he had done and that he wished he could take it back. The police asked him what he had done with the body, and he told them about the exact location in the river where he wrapped the body in a blanket, tied it with a rope and a weight, and watched it sink. He said that he had hoped that the body would never be found and that he could forget what he had done. The police, accompanied by Ruben, launched a search operation along the Tajo River. After several days of relentless searching, using boats, divers, and drones, they finally discovered Beatriz's body about 1.5 miles downstream from where Ruben had discarded it. The body was in an advanced state of decomposition, but was positively identified as Beatriz through her dental records. Forensic evidence confirmed she had died through severe blunt force trauma to the head, and she had defense wounds on her hands, indicating that she fought back. The police charged Ruben with first-degree murder and concealment of a corpse, and took him to the prison, where he would await trial. The news of Beatriz's death sent shockwaves through the community. Her friends, classmates, and colleagues were left devastated, unable to comprehend that she had been murdered by someone they all knew, and even participated in the search for her. A vigil was held in her memory, and social media was flooded with grief and memories of Beatriz. The betrayal by Ruben only amplified their grief. Him and his family received damning messages on social media. He was the most hated man in Portugal. Ruben was charged with murder, desecration of a corpse, and simulation of a crime. He was held in preventive detention, awaiting trial. At some point, he was assaulted by another prisoner and had also attempted to end his life. He was offered psychological counseling, which he refused. While awaiting his trial, he was put on suicide watch. However, on Sunday, June 20, 2020, sometime between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m., he hung himself in his cell with his bedsheet and left a note behind in which he apologized for his actions and expressed his inability to live with the guilt. Beatriz's mom expressed her condolences to Ruben's on social media. She said she had empathy for his family because they too had lost a child. In addition, she wanted to put an end to the hate that was on social media. There was an overwhelming amount of hate against Ruben and celebration around news of his demise that Paula wanted to counteract these hateful reactions with one of peace and love. She wrote, quote, "Ruben is a normal boy, 24 years old, who could well be my son. I must therefore pay my respects to his family. She further said regretted he took his life because it affected her own closure. Quote, I should have talked to him. It was the least he could have done. I needed answers. The case of Beatriz Lebre was officially closed, but the questions lingered. What drove Ruben to commit such a violent act? How was he able to conceal his dark side from everyone who knew him? In the aftermath of Beatriz's death, her family and friends strived to keep her memory alive. They organized concerts and readings in her honor and established a scholarship in her name to support students aspiring to study psychology. They also raised awareness about violence against women and mental health, encouraging people to seek help if they found themselves in a similar situation. The tragic tale of Beatriz Lebre teaches us why it's important to control our impulses, learn to respect other decisions, even when they go against what we desire, and not be overcome by our dark thoughts and emotions. I leave you with a video of Beatriz Lebre, the way she might have wished to be remembered, performing the piano. May she find eternal peace, and may her music continue to resonate forever. Lastly, if you enjoyed my work, like and share this video, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. On screen you can find other cases of my work. Thank you.